Good morning to all of you. Myself Lakshmi Prasanna, working as Assistant Professor in School of Agriculture, Department of Soil Science and Agriculture Chemistry, SR University, Warangal, Telangana. As part of our soil science course, Management of Problem Soils and Irrigation Water, today I am going to discuss about the acid soils and its formation. So before going into the review of the acid soils, I want to give a brief introduction about the acid soils. Acid soils is a type of the critical soil property which is defined by pH value typically which is below 5.5 pH. These soils are widespread globally, significantly impacting the agriculture productivity and ecosystem health. It is a type of a problematic soils from the engineer's point of view as a result of circumstances or change in environmental condition. These soils belong to the soil order like spodosols, alphisols, insectisols, histosols, altisols, oxysols with woostic and woodic soil moisture residues. So this is a brief nutshell of the acid soils which I am going to discuss in this class. So I am going to discuss about the definition and its distribution, characteristics of acid soil, sources or formation of acid soil, what are the properties of acid soil, kinds of soil acidity, problems of soil acidity, management and reclamation measures of acid soil. So let's discuss each one by one in detail. So acid soil distribution. So out of 157 million hectares of cultivable land present in India, acid soils occupy 49 million hectares of land and these soils are acidic in nature. In India, the acid soils are present in various states like Assam, Meghalaya, Arunachal Pradesh, Mizoram, Nagaland, Tripura, West Bengal, Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir, Maharashtra, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and Andhra Pradesh. Rajasthan and Gujarat are the only states in India where these acid soils do not occur. So in acid soils, the major constant is the aluminium and iron toxicity, which makes the soil more acidic in nature and affecting the crop productivity. Acid soils below 5.5 pH are injurious to the crop plants. So this is the India map describing about the distribution of the acid soils. So there are different ranges of the acid soils. So the range of the acid soils includes this strongly acid soils having the pH range less than 4.5, moderately acid soils having the pH 4.5 to 5.5, where it is present near Chhattisgarh, Nagaland and Meghalaya. Strongly acid soils have the pH less than 4.5 pH, which is present in some parts of Arunachal Pradesh, Manipur and Sikkim. Slightly acidic soils are the soils have the pH range 5.5 to 6.5. It is present in West Bengal, Jharkhand, Orissa, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh, Uttaranchal, and some parts of Karnataka, Tamil Nadu. Non-acidic soils are soils have the pH greater than 6.5 pH, which is present in Maharashtra, Karnataka, and Andhra Pradesh. This is the statewide distribution of acid soils present in India, as we have discussed in the previous slide. So now we are coming to the definition of soil acidity. So before going to the soil acidity, let's discuss about what is acid and what is base. So generally, acid is nothing but a substance which tends to give up the protons or hydrogen ions is known as the acid. Base is a substance which tend to accept the protons or the H plus ions is known as the base. Soil acidity is nothing but the soil system proton donating capacity from one transition state to a reference state is known as the soil acidity. So soil acidity, here you can see the acid. So here in the acid soil, it tends to give up the hydrogen ions. As more amount of hydrogen ions are released, so thereby leaching of cations takes place. That is why the base saturation is very less in the acid soil. Whereas in the alkali soil, that is the basic soil, have the more amount of H plus, more amount of cations present in them. That is why the base saturation is 80% in the alkali soil. Characteristics of acid soils. In the characteristics of acid soils have the low pH and has high proportion of exchangeable H plus and aluminium ions. So it has the types of clay minerals like kaolite and illite are the type of clay minerals which are dominantly present in these types of acid soils. These soils have the low CEC and low base saturation because of the excessive leaching which is caused by the intensive rainfall. These soils have the high concentration of iron, aluminium and manganese ions having the deficiency of calcium and magnesium. These soils have the low nutrients and microbial imbalances as there is low pH. These soils are generally low in available phosphorus and have the high phosphorus fixation capacity, which making the phosphorus insoluble to the plant growth. Soil acidity inhibits the biological nitrogen fixation. Sources are formation of soil acidity. So how these acid soils are formed? So generally the acid soils are formed from the acidic parent material, leaching of bases caused by the heavy rainfall or heavy precipitation, which is conditioned by the various factors, which includes the parent material, human interface, vegetation, and hydrological cycles on the landscape. So generally these acid soils are developed in the humid regions where there is more rainfall, heavy precipitation. Rainfall is very regular in that particular areas. So let's see the sources of soil acidity. Soil acidity is formed from the various sources which includes the excessive rainfall. So in the excessive rainfall areas, in the humid areas where there is more amount of rainfall, as you all know that the nutrient layer, almost all the nutrients are present on the top layers of horizon. When there is excessive rainfall in that particular area, due to the excessive rainfall, all the nutrients, all the cations which are present on the topper layers of soil gets leached down or removed from the topper layers of soil and moved to the below layers, remaining which is leaving the H plus and aluminium and iron ions, as these are insoluble in water, making the soil more acidic. Ionization of water. So water ionization, when there is more ionization of water, when during ionization of water, more amount of H plus ions are released on the exchange complex of various minerals, thereby causing more amount of soil acidity. Contact exchange. Contact exchange. The contact exchange, the exchange between the root surface and the soil particles. The hydrogen ions which are present on the root surface and the nutrients which are the cations or the minerals which are present on the soil particles get exchanged, thereby causing the soil acidity. Cause the soil acidity. Soluble acid production. The soluble acid production is formed during the decomposition of soil organic matter, which produces more amount of organic and inorganic acids as well. So due to the production of this more amount of organic and inorganic acids, which also gives the hydrogen ions on the exchange complex. Usage of nitrogenous fertilizers. Due to continuous usage of nitrogenous fertilizers like ammonium, ammonical fertilizers or the urea, which produce more amount of hydrogen ions, thereby causing the soil acidity. Oxidation of iron sulfide. Oxidation of iron sulfide takes place. So due to the oxidation of iron sulfide, the sulfate ion, which is used by the plants for its growth, the sulfate ion during the waterlogged condition, when it undergoes this reduction, when it undergoes reduction in the presence of organic material, in the presence of sulfur reducing bacteria, that is desulfovibrio bacteria, the sulfate which is present in the coastal areas of coastal lands, the sulfate gets converted into the sulfide, thereby causing FeS2, which is ferrous sulfate, which is causing the soil acidity. Hydrolysis of iron and aluminium. The iron and aluminium hydrolysis also release the H plus ions. So this hydrolysis of iron and aluminium releases the H plus ions. So this ALOH, this hydrolysis occurs at various pH as Al plus 3, which is the dominant species which is released during hydrolysis, occurs at pH less than 4.7. ALOH2 takes place, occurs at a pH 4.7 to 6.5. ALOH3 occurs at a pH 6.5 to 8, and ALOH4 occurs at greater than 8 pH. So during these hydrolysis of aluminum and iron, H plus ions are released, which making the soil more acidic. So as I didn't describe about the iron, in the same manner, the toxicity of iron is more when compared to the aluminum toxicity, making the soil more acidic in nature. Next is the acidic parent material. Acidic parent material. Acidic parent material is found from the acid forming rocks, which includes granite, rhyolite, in areas where causing more amount of soil acidity. So acid parent material, when there is more amount of acid parent material having more amount of silica present in them, such as granite or rhyolite, causing the soil acidity. Acidity from the air. Acidity from the air, which includes the sulfur compounds, which causes the soil acidity. The sulfur compounds, when it undergoes the oxidation phenomena, the ferrous sulfide, which is formed when it is aerated or oxidized, it, under the aerobic condition, in the sulfide compounds, when it is aerated or when it undergoes tillage practices, it gets oxidized and forms the sulfuric acid. So this is one of the phenomena where there is formation of these acid sulfide soils, which tends to give the acidity nature of the soils. Sources of soil acidity also includes the organic matter or the humus. So organic matter or humus also contains the various charges like carboxyl ions, phenolic ions, carboxyl and enolic ions. These carboxyl, enolic and phenolic ions also produce, they undergo weak dissociation to form weak acids. These weak acids tends to give more amount of hydrogen ions, which tends to give the soil acidity. Decomposition of organic residues. During decomposition of organic residues or decomposition of organic matter, more amount of carbon dioxide is released during this decomposition. The carbon dioxide which is released when it combines with the water, it forms the carbonic acid, which tends to give the acidity nature of the soil. Root CEC. During the cation exchange capacity near the root and the soil surface, the root surface is having the hydrogen ions on its complex. The cations which are present on the soil particles get exchanged between the H plus ions and the cations which are present on the complex exchange complex, thereby causing this acidity nature. Sulfur compounds, as we have discussed previously, the sulfur compounds, the sulfate ion which is present in the lowland areas or the swampy areas, the sulfate ions which are present in the lowland areas or the swampy areas or the estuarine areas, when it combines with the organic matter in the anaerobic conditions, it forms the sulfide compound, and by the bacteria, that is the sulfur reducing bacteria, which is known as the desulfovibrio bacteria. This desulfovibrio bacteria, it forms the iron sulfide, that is FeS2 compound. FeS2 compound, again, when it undergoes oxidation phenomena, FeS2, when it combines with the water, it forms the sulfuric acid by the sulfur oxidizing bacteria, that is the Theobacillus ferrooxidans, causing the soil acidity. Respiration of the plant roots. During respiration of the plant roots, plant yield more amount of carbon dioxide. When this carbon dioxide, when it comes in contact with the water, it forms the bicarbonates by releasing the H plus ions, leading to the soil acidity. Soluble salts which are released during the withering phenomena, withering of rocks and minerals, and also during the mineralization process of different nitrogen and phosphorus, releases more amount of H plus ions, causing the soil acidity. So these are the various sources of soil acidity which are formed or which makes the soil more acidic. Next, pH So this is the pH scale. So in this pH scale, you can see the range like acidic soil pH having the pH of pH of less than 5.5. So at the pH at lower pH of acidic pH at 5.5 pH, the nutrients like aluminium, hydrogen, aluminium, iron, manganese, zinc, copper, these are available to the crop growth. Whereas the nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, calcium, magnesium, these ions which are useful for the plant growth, these are not available for the plant growth at the pH of less than 5.5 pH. In slightly acidic to the neutral pH of 6.5 to 7.5 pH, it is the ideal condition where most of the plants utilize the nutrients in a better manner for their plant growth. The nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium, all these are the nutrients which are available to the plant growth at a pH of 6.5 to 7.5 pH. Whereas the alkaline pH having the pH above 8 pH. So at this pH, the nutrients like iron, manganese, boron, copper, and zinc are less available at this pH. Molybdenum is the only nutrient which is available at higher pH. So next slide is regarding the soil acidity. So in the properties of soil acidity, the physical properties of soil acidity includes it is a light in texture soil having the high permeability to water, poor water holding capacity, poor amount of organic matter. The clay minerals like kaolite and illite are the most dominant in these particular soils. Chemical properties includes more anions. It has more amount of anions than cations. Availability of anions like Fe, Mn, Zn, Cu, cobalt, and alumina are more dominant ions present in these acid soils pH. Biological properties include the population of fungi is more dominant when compared to the bacteria. As growth of fungi is higher at a lower pH, that is less than 5.5 pH, whereas bacteria grows under the neutral to the alkaline conditions having the pH 6.5 to 7.5 pH. The rate of decomposition of biological materials, mineralization process, and the nitrification phenomena is very low at this acidic conditions are affecting the so at this low pH conditions, the mineralization or the nitrification process is affected as the pH is very low. At this pH, the bacteria cannot work. That is why the nitrification and mineralization process is severely affected at this particular pH. So types or pools of soil acidity. So pools of soil acidity includes, there are three types of soil acidity, that is active acidity, potential acidity, or exchange acidity. Next is the residual acidity. So first is the active acidity. Active acidity is nothing but it is also known as the true acidity. The acidity which is formed during the development of H plus aluminum ions on the soil solution. It is known as the active acidity. So I'll show you the diagram so you can understand in a better manner. So this is known as the active acidity, salt replaceable acidity, also known as exchangeable acidity, residual acidity. So active acidity is nothing but the acidity where, so acidity is nothing but the release of hydrogen and aluminum ions in a dominant quantities. So these hydrogen and aluminum ions are present on the soil solution. So mostly these hydrogen and aluminum ions are present in the soil solution. That is why it is known as the active acidity. So the magnitude of this acidity is very limited. The acidity, it is measured, this type of acidity is measured by the pH meter. Next is the exchangeable acidity. It is also known as the salt replaceable acidity or the exchangeable acidity. So it is known as the salt replaceable acidity. It is because of the presence of hydrogen and aluminum ions. Is by the presence of hydrogen and aluminum ions present on the soil colloids. acidity which is developed due to the adsorbed H plus and aluminum ions present on the soil colloids. That is why it is known as the exchangeable acidity or salt replaceable acidity. So here the hydrogen ions and H plus ions and aluminum ions are present on the exchange soil colloids on the exchange complex of clay. So it is present on the exchange complex of clay colloids. That is why it is known as the salt replaceable acidity. Here in the active acidity, the H plus and aluminum ions are present on the soil solution, whereas in the salt replaceable acidity, the H plus and aluminum ions are present on the exchange complex of clay. That is why these ions are present on the clay colloids. That is why it is known as the salt replaceable acidity or the exchangeable acidity. Next is the residual. This type of acidity, mainly the lime requirement of acid soil is mainly determined by this exchange acidity. The magnitude of this acidity is very high. Next is the residual acidity. Residual acidity is the acidity which is left after the active and exchangeable acidity. When it is neutralized completely, then the leftover acidity is the residual acidity. So this type of acidity is associated with the hydroxyl and aluminum ions, which are bound in non-exchangeable forms. So these are present in the non-exchangeable forms of the clay or colloid. That is why it is known as the residual acidity. So here, when next is the total acidity. The acidity, which is a summation of active acidity, exchangeable acidity, and residual acidity, it is known as the total replaceable acidity. So when we see the difference between these three pools of soil acidity, in the soil active acidity, the H plus and the released H plus and aluminum ions are present in the soil solution. That is why the acidic conditions is very high. Whereas the salt replaceable acidity or the exchange acidity, here the H plus and aluminum ions are present on the clay colloids, on the surface of the clay colloids. These are present on these clay colloids. That is why it is known as the salt replaceable acidity or exchangeable acidity. Whereas the residual acidity is nothing but the acidity that is H plus and aluminum ions which are bound on the clay and humus colloids. On the clay and humus colloids, this is known as the residual acidity. Next is the problems of soil acidity. So in the problems of soil acidity includes toxic effects, nutrient availability, and microbial activity. In the toxic effects, the effect is due to the acid toxicity, and also due to this acid toxicity, there is nutrient imbalances. Next is the nutrient availability. So nutrient availability is associated with the specific effects like exchangeable bases, nutrient imbalances. Next is the microbial activity. So next is the acid toxicity. First is the toxic effects. So in the toxic effect, first is the acid toxicity. Generally, the acid toxicity resembles the formation of the or release of H plus and aluminum ions. As these H plus and aluminum ions are more soluble in the acid pH, more soluble at lower pH. That is why there is more release of H plus aluminum and iron ions. So due to the release of these H plus and aluminum and iron ions at this concentration, which leads to the toxicity of that particular elements. Next is the iron and manganese toxicity. Iron and manganese toxicity. So due to increase in the organic matter content, toxicity of nutrient imbalances or the nutrient elements. So in the iron and manganese, the toxicity which is caused due to so when there is more amount of organic matter content in the soil, more population, the population of the microbes are also increased. When the populations of microbes are increased, there is more availability of, there is need of more oxygen for the respiration of these microbes. So when there is more oxygen is utilized by these microbes, there is more amount of reduction phenomena takes place. When there is more amount of organic matter present in the soil, soil microbial population increases. And soil microbial population increases, there is more availability of oxygen for the microbes. When there is more amount of availability of oxygen for the microbes, there is more reduction phenomena takes place. So due to this reduction phenomena, due to the soil reduction, the elements like Mn plus 4 or Mn plus Fe plus 3 gets reduced to the Mn plus 2, that is manganese form, and Fe plus 3 is converted to the Fe plus 2, that is the ferrous ion. So that is Mn plus 4 and Fe plus 3 gets reduced to the Mn plus 2 and Fe plus 2, thereby causing the toxicity of that particular elements. Due to such toxic effects, one of the physiological disorder which is present in the rice crops, that is the submerged soils, which is known as the Browning disease. So Browning disease is one of the physiological disorder which is seen in the lowland rice crops due to this toxicity of H plus and iron ions. So here you can see the this Browning disease, symptoms of this Browning disease. Reddish brown symptoms are formed on the leaves because of the high toxicity of iron and aluminium, which is released in the acid soils. So this is the physiological disorder which is seen in the rice crops due to the high toxicity of iron and aluminium, which is popularly known as the Browning disease. Next is the toxicity of aluminium. So aluminium toxicity is caused in the acid soil. It causes more, its problem is caused both in upland and lowland rices. It restricts the root growth. It affects the physiological process in the plants like cell division, formation of DNA, and respiration is severely affected. Aluminium toxicity. Toxicity of aluminium, which is caused both in lowland and upland soils. So this aluminium toxicity affects the various ways. It restricts the root growth, affects the various physiological processes like cell division, formation of DNA, and respiration. It also restricts the absorption and translocation of some important nutrients elements from important nutrients elements like phosphorus, calcium, manganese. It causes wilting of plants. It also inhibits the microbial. It also inhibits the microbial activity in the soil. Next, this toxicity effect also affects the microbial activity. So in the At the low pH, the activity of fungi is more dominant when compared with bacteria and actinomycetes. So bacteria and actinomycetes functions very moderate in a moderate manner at a pH at a low pH value. So when the pH is below 5.5, there is less activity of these bacteria and actinomycetes. Nitrogen fixation activity in the acid soils is greatly affected as by the activity of the Azotobacter species. And also the symbiotic nitrogen fixation is also affected by the which is responsible for the bacteria, that is the rhizobium bacteria becomes inactive at the lower pH. Fungi grows very well at a very acidic conditions, causing various diseases like root rot of tobacco and blight of potato. Next is the nutrient availability. So in the nutrient availability, due to various complementary effects. So complementary effect is nothing but the effect of one ion on the other ion. So the effect of one ion causes either a positive or negative impact on the other ion. That is known as the complementary effect. So deficiency of different bases like calcium, magnesium are mostly found in the acid soils. So nutrient imbalances includes the deficiency of calcium, magnesium present in these particular soils. Phosphorus, when it reacts with the compounds of phosphorus, when it reacts with the oxides and hydroxides of iron and aluminum, it gets converted into the insoluble phosphatic compounds, which makes the phosphorus unavailable to the plants. Next is the phosphorus fixation. Phosphorus fixation is nothing but the absorbable phosphorus is converted into the soluble phosphorus is converted into the insoluble forms. Soluble form is converted into the insoluble form, which is known as the phosphorus fixation. So this phosphorus fixation is caused by the oxides of iron and aluminum and also by the adsorption phenomena, thereby reducing the phosphorus available to the plant growth. In the acid soils, iron, manganese, copper, and zinc are most dominant, but molybdenum is very limited and unavailable to the plants. In acidic soils at very low pH, the availability of boron is also decreased due to the adsorption on sesquioxides and aluminum hydroxide compounds. The nutrient elements like nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur are less available in acidic pH. Effect of soil acidity. So effect of soil acidity on the plant growth. Soil acidity causes various effects on the plant growth. So this effect is mainly caused by the various factors, that is the soil texture, structure, base saturation, CEC, and organic matter. So it has both direct and indirect effects. Direct effect is caused by the high toxicity of H+ ions on the root tissue. It also affects the permeability of the plant membrane to the various bases. And there is interference caused by the basic and acidic constituents throughout the roots, thereby causing the nutrient imbalances. When coming to the indirect effects, indirect effect is caused by the is caused in the legumes that cannot withstand the soil acidity. Growth of crops like cotton, maize, and wheat is severely affected because of this low pH condition. Nutrient imbalances includes the calcium, magnesium, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, which is where the soluble forms are converted into the insoluble forms. Thereby it is not available to the plant growth. High solubility of iron, manganese, and zinc are mostly seen here. Decrease in availability of molybdenum and boron, and slow rate of decomposition of organic matter due to the low microbial activity. Organic mineralization or decomposition of organic matter is very low at lower pH, thereby the microbial activity is degraded at lower pH. Next, kinds of liming materials. So kinds of liming materials includes oxides of lime, hydroxides of lime, carbonates of lime, and basic slags. Liming materials include the calcium oxide. So the calcium oxides include burnt lime, quicklime, or unslaked lime. calcium hydroxide, flake lime, hydrated lime and builder's lime. Calcium carbonate, it includes calcite and limestone. Next is the dolomite. And other liming materials include coral shell, chalk, wood ash, fresh mud. Byproducts of various materials include paper mills, sugar factories, fly ash, fly ash and sludge. So these are all the materials, these are all the liming materials used for the reclamation of the acid soils. Next is the liming reaction. So the liming reactions which is used for the acid soils. So in the liming reaction, the limestone, that is the calcium carbonate, when it is used, when it is treated to the acidic soil, so it combines with the calcium carbonate, it combines with the water and the carbon dioxide and forms the calcium bicarbonate. The formed calcium, which is released into the solution, it helps in increasing the pH, and the carbon dioxide and the hydrogen ions which are released, and the hydrogen and water which is released here, it enters into the solution. So here you can see the liming reaction. So the calcium carbonate, when it is used, it gives rise to the calcium plus 2 and carbonates. So when it is added to when it is treated to the acid soil having the H plus and aluminum ions on its soil surface, this calcium carbonate, when it is treated, the calcium replaces the H plus and aluminum ions on the acid soil, which makes the soil neutral. So the calcium which is in the calcium carbonate, it replaces the H plus and aluminum ions and makes the soil neutral. And the H plus and H plus ions, which are the H plus ions, combines with the carbonates and forms the bicarbonates. The bicarbonate which is released in this reaction, it neutralizes the soil acidity, thereby pH of soil acidity, thereby increasing the soil pH. First is the calcium carbonate. The calcium replaces the H plus and aluminum ions, making the soil neutral. And the carbonates which is present here, it reacts with the hydrogen, it reacts with the water and forms the bicarbonic acid. So this OH minus ions which are present in the bicarbonates helps in the neutralization of this soil acidity. So this is how the liming materials are used for treating the soil acidity, thereby increasing the soil pH. Amelioration of soil acidity. Amelioration or the reclamation of soil acidity. So for reclamation of soil acidity, mainly the liming is required. So lime requirement of acid soil should be done. So lime requirement is nothing but the amount of liming material, the amount of lime which is added to the acid soil in order to raise the pH at a range of 6 to 7 pH, that is known as the lime requirement of acid soil. This lime requirement is done in order to increase the pH of acid soil, thereby all the nutrients is available to the plant growth in the optimum manner. The lime requirement of acid soils was given by the scientist. The lime requirement of acid soil was given by the scientist Shoemaker. The lime requirement of acid soil is given by the scientist Shoemaker in the year 1961. So the lime requirement is mainly done by the addition of liming material, that is the calcite or the dolomite. Other factors which includes the other factors of acid soil includes growth of more acid tolerant crops. By growing more amount of acid tolerant crops, so acid tolerant crops, like in high acid tolerant crops which include rice, potato, sweet potato, oat and castor. Moderate acid tolerant crops which include barley, wheat, maize, turnip and brinjal. Slightly acid tolerant crops which include tomato, carrot and red clover. And also the use of the basic fertilizers. So by the usage of these basic fertilizers, the pH is increased. So these basic fertilizers include sodium nitrate and the basic slag, and the soil and water management. Proper soil and water management should be done in order to maintain the leach out the bases and enhances the decomposition of organic matter. So crop choice should be done in such a manner that it increases or it counteracts the soil problem, thereby increasing the soil acidity, thereby increasing the soil pH. So crop choice should be done in such a manner that it counteracts the soil acidity, thereby increasing the soil pH, particularly in areas where liming is not an economic proposition. Why gypsum is not used as a liming material? So here the question is like, why gypsum is not considered as a liming material? So gypsum is not considered as a liming material. It is because the formula of gypsum is calcium and CaSO4 2H2O. So gypsum has both calcium and sulfate. The calcium present in the gypsum, is increases the soil pH, whereas the sulfate which is present in the gypsum, it reacts with the water. It reacts with the water and forms the sulfuric acid, which makes the soil more and more acidic. That is why gypsum is not used as a liming material. Only the lime, that is the calcium, calcite, and dolomite, is used as a liming material. And also besides this, calcium in the gypsum, the calcium present in the gypsum will also replaces the adsorbed aluminiums in the localized zone. I mean, the calcium which is present in the gypsum also helps in the replacement of the aluminium in the localized zone. That is why gypsum is applied as a band placement with a significant lowering of soil pH. Thereby, gypsum is not used as a liming material. Why acid soils are not fertile? Acid soils are not fertile. It is because of the toxicity of because of the low pH. This low pH occurs because of the low base saturation. This low base saturation takes place because of the there is the release of high amounts of aluminium, iron, and manganese ions. First is the aluminium toxicity. Aluminium toxicity is this toxicity occurs because of the release of aluminium ions under low pH condition. This aluminium toxicity affects the plants, causing various damages, which includes the root system. So it is mainly damaged the root system tend to be shortened and swollen. So the root system tend to be shortened and swollen, having the stubby appearance of the roots. Next is the manganese toxicity. This manganese toxicity, the symptoms of this manganese toxicity is seen on the leaves, where there is stunted, crinkling, and chlorotic leaves appears chlorotic in nature. These are all the symptoms of manganese toxicity, which is seen on the soybean crop. Next is a calcium deficiency. So calcium deficiency is the calcium is mostly available at a pH of 5.5 to 6.5 pH. So as the acid soil's pH is less than 5.5, there is deficiency of calcium. So calcium is mostly immobile in the plant, and its deficiency symptoms are mostly seen in the growing tips. So the symptoms of the calcium includes the stunted growth. Young leaves tend to unfurl the leaf tips, thereby leaf margins soon die. Next is a phosphorus deficiency. Phosphorus is also available at a pH of 6.5 to 7 pH. There is deficiency of phosphorus in the acid soils, where the leaf of the phosphorus deficiency resembles in the purplish discoloration. This purple discoloration is mainly due to the accumulation of pigment known as the anthocyanin. So due to this anthocyanin pigment accumulation, the deficiency of phosphorus is seen in the leaves, which seems to be in a purple color appearance. So this is a diagram which is a general view of the things which I have discussed in the previously. So causes of soil acidity, which includes the it is caused by the soil erosion, soil organic matter depletion, and also the more amount of usage of the acid forming fertilizers, that is like ammonium nitrate, urea, and SSP. And also soil acidity also helps in, it also removes the cations, making the low base saturation, deposition of atmospheric gases like sulfur dioxide, ammonium, and nitric acid. So during when there is in the industrial areas, there is most release of these nitrate and sulfate gases, which are released mostly. So when this sulfate is released, when this ammonium and sulfate is released into the atmosphere, it reacts with the water and forms the sulfuric acid and the nitric acid, thereby resulting in the formation of the acid rains. So acid rains also causes the soil acidity. So soil acidity is managed. Soil acidity is managed mainly by the application of lime, manure, compost, biochar, crop residues, by growing acid-tolerant varieties and crop rotation, integration of the soil fertility and also the plant nutrient availability. When these things are integrated, there is a good amount of soil fertility and also plant nutrients are easily available. Thereby, good plant growth and yield is enhanced in the crops. Next point is the calcium carbonate equivalent. So calcium carbonate equivalent is calcium carbonate equivalent. It is mainly done in order to decrease the in order to neutralize the pH. So it is defined as the acid neutralizing capacity of agricultural liming material. Acid neutralizing capacity of agricultural liming material, which is expressed in form of weight percentage of calcium carbonate. So the formula of CC is molecular weight of calcium carbonate by molecular weight of amount of liming material used. So there are neutralizing value of different liming materials include. So calcium oxide has the neutralizing value of 179. Calcium hydroxide has the neutralizing value of 136. Dolomite has 109. Calcite has the neutralizing value 100, whereas the basic slag has the neutralizing value 86. Liming factor is generally used in the acidic soils. The value of liming factor ranges from 1.5 to 2. Effect of over liming. So liming should be done in a proper manner. So there is effect of liming there is beneficial effects and also the harmful effects. So some of the harmful effects of liming includes when liming is done in excessive amounts, there is a deficiency of iron, copper, and zinc. Phosphorus and potassium becomes unavailable or insoluble to the plants due to high OH ion concentration. Due to the overliming, more amount of oxide OH ions are increased. Thereby, the root growth is inhibited. Boron deficiency is seen. Boron deficiency occurs due to the overliming, and also there is incidence of severe diseases, which includes scab of potato and other crop diseases. Some of the beneficial effects of lime include it enhances the microbial activity. So it enhances the microbial activity, decomposition of organic residues, and also mineralization of nitrogen. It checks the or it prevents the soil erosion and also the soil degradation. It helps in symbiotic and non-symbiotic nitrogen fixation. It also increases the phosphorus availability and prevents the phosphorus fixation and fixation of iron, manganese, and aluminum phosphate. It also increases the availability of potassium by reducing the luxury consumption. Decreases the availability of exchangeable calcium and magnesium. It increases the availability of exchangeable calcium and magnesium. It also decreases the solubility of iron, aluminum, manganese, and zinc. Increases the availability of molybdenum and boron. decreases the concentration of H plus ions and thereby increases the concentration of OH minus ions, thereby decreasing the soil acidity. It also increases the physical conditions of soil, which includes the soil structure, infiltration rate, bulk density, and also flocculation capacity of the soil. So here you can see the diagram where the lime is added to the acid soil. So here the diagram depicts the lime. Here the lime is not added. So here the lime is applied in the furrows, and here the effect is seen. So there is proper growth and yield of the crops by the application of lime in the acid soil. pH preference crops. So the pH the pH of 6 to 7.5, the crops suitable are baskin, barley, sorghum, and wheat. The pH of 5.5 to 7 range, pea, French bean, gram is grown at this pH. The pH of 5 to 5.5, potato is the major crop which is grown at the pH of 5.5. Cotton millet, the favorable pH is 5 to 6.5 pH. For the oats, it is 5 to 7.5. Sugar beet ranges from the pH of 6 to 8 pH. Groundnut includes 5.3 to 6.5 pH. Rice or tea includes 4 to 6 pH. I hope this video will be useful for the students. If you like the video, please do share, comment, and subscribe the video. Thank you.